What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into episode 220 of the CRW podcast here, as we're going to recap what was a really fun Saturday in Morgantown for two-thirds of the CRW hosts here. Steven and I both made the trip up to Morgantown on Saturday. We had a really fun day, a lot of stuff to talk about in regards to that. Of course, we have football transfer news, basketball transfer news. We'll touch on all of those subjects here throughout. It'll be a little bit shorter episode of the CRW podcast, but still one that packs a punch and brings you plenty of content. And here to help me talk about all of that, of course, is my great co-host, Steven. What's going on tonight, Steven?
What's going on, everybody? How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Good to get back, and now finally, getting back into the swing of things after we had a fun weekend there, taking the trip up to Morgantown. That's kind of what we're going to open the show with, is just talking about what was a really fun Saturday that the two of us had up there in Morgantown. Left early from down here in Mercer County, went up, caught the spring showcase, got to get the first look at the Rich Rod 2.0 era, see some of the new names and faces that were flying around on the field, and then even had enough, time after it was over to head over, of course, check out the baseball game, get to see the second game of the doubleheader there as the Mountaineer baseball team continues their great seasons. But, we'll talk about some of our takeaways from the stuff we saw on the field as well momentarily. But let's lead it off here, Stephen. Let's just talk about, the day in general, some takeaways, some fun stuff that stuck out to you, some stuff you really enjoyed on a Saturday during our trip, man. Unless you have the floor first.
Yeah, I always enjoy our trips to Morgantown. They're always fun. I think first and foremost, I love that they finally opened up the entire lower bowl of the stadium for a spring showcase, not a spring game. Even though it pretty much was still a game. I think they
I got
said
to
they
stop
ran like 80
myself from
plays or something
saying
like
spring
that.
game every time.
Yeah,
So they rebranded.
yeah. They didn't pack it out, but it was pretty cool to be able to open up the whole thing. I liked what I seen out of the team. I guess there's only so much you can tell out of these type of games, these spring showcases games, whatever. Every year, I'm like, well, I don't know if what we seen was good or if what we seen was bad.
It's hard to tell
but
sometimes.
but it was fun. Like you said, we got to go over to the baseball stadium and enjoy some baseball games right after that, and I don't know, it was really cool because once we got in there, immediately when we got in there, Amani Guzman, caught that
Oh
caught
yeah,
that catch right
we were
over
right
the
there.
fence there in right field to end at the tail end of the first game, and we were standing right there on the wall right beside the foul pole. So it was really cool to just be able to walk in and see that immediately. And then on in the next game, we watched it all the way up until the weather delay, and that was a real fun game to watch. And West Virginia, pretty much lit them up the entire game.
Yeah, they did.
Uh, so that baseball team is fun to watch. Just all in all, it was a really good day. Really good day. I got a picture with Pac-Man Jones when we were,
Say
at the
Pac-Man.
football.
Yeah.
Got to mention all that. Yeah, we got to go on the field. Be down there. Being on the field is awesome in and of itself. But then you get to go down there and be with the coaches and the players, and for me and Cruz, it's fun for us too because once you go into games for a few seasons and you meet the same people that you sit around. I mean, it really is. It's a family even when you're sitting beside strangers. When you go to games like that. Like anytime I'm at a WVU game, I always find myself talking to everybody around me because you get to talking about the game and high fiving and all that. So it
Oh
always
yeah.
has like a friend or a family vibe. But I don't know. It truly does feel you get to know people and get close with people that you meet through the years that sit around you and have the same seats around you because they're also season ticket holders. So you get to see those people up there sometimes, and I see the same guy and his son every single
I
time
was
I
about
go
to
to these
say
games. I mean,
we've
it's
seen
not
a couple
it's
people
just
from the
by chance.
section. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just by chance. And I mean, I've seen other people that sit around us too at random like at basketball games or baseball games
Well, it's
or
funny
different
because
events.
it was deja vu because I could be just, misremembering the two times, but I swear last year when we were on the field for the spring game again and we saw
We
them,
seen
because
them.
we saw the same people, I
Yeah.
think we were staying in the same area too. I think it was right around that end zone last year. And then this year we were right
I
around that
think
end
it
zone again.
was.
I'm pretty
I
sure.
think that's wild, but yeah, I think you're right. I think we did see him in the same exact area.
Yeah, this was
So
a
that's
weird
funny.
coincidence, but yeah, I'm glad
But
you mentioned that because that's definitely one of my main favorite takeaways from the day, and of course was to be expected after last year. We were kind of surprised by it. This year we knew it was coming, but the opportunity to get to go down on the field, take some pictures with players, just to be on the field itself is a good enough experience. And this year they had it a little bit more organized. They did have, signs for like each position group, although me and Steven never could find the running backs. I mean, we walked up and down the field like 2 times looking for the running backs, but still ended up, working out good. Still ended up getting my Jaheim White autographs and stuff. Got all those handed to me. Shout out to Jaheim and his family there. They're super great people,
jealous.
as I've talked about in the past, for sure.
Jealous.
Friend of the show, Jaheim White, we can say now, right? For sure.
Yep.
But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. We did get to see Pac-Man Jones. Steven got a picture. That was a good experience. Got to see some people that sit in Steven's section, as he mentioned there. Me and Steven, with our season tickets, were one section over from each other, so we're always in the same general area, so we know a lot of the same people and get to see them, when we go up there in the fall. But as far as, the Saturday itself, good trip up, not a lot of bad weather. Trip back, we didn't run into too much either. Really, the only weather that we had, we were worried about the rain, and that came towards the tail end of the baseball game. But I think,
oh boy, did it!
Yeah.
I mean, me and Cruz, he's trying not to be dramatic, but I mean, we got soaked. It came pouring down.
Well, especially for Steven, because he didn't bring a jacket. I had my rain jacket on, had my hood on, but Steven, he just had a hat and a t-shirt, so he was getting drenched. It started coming down before we got to the car. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, man. It was a bad decision.
But it held off.
This is why they called the rain delay.
I'm glad that it held off for, we got to see 7 innings of the baseball game before that happened, and then of course, it held off for the entire spring showcase. We got to see that in its entirety, of course, when we headed over to the baseball game. But that was one of my favorite things, too, is the way that it worked out. Well, by the time we got to the baseball game, we got our tickets. It was right at the end. I think it was about 8th inning or so of the prior game. And like Steven said, we're like, well, we're not going to go to our seats yet. We'll just post up here and wait for this game to end before we go to our seats, because we'd bought some seats down the baseline. So we were just chilling in right field, and lo and behold, right there, Johnny on the spot to see that great catch off the side there. And, there was a video floating around of it, and me and Steven were like, oh, yeah, you can see our legs and lower half of our bodies up there watching the play there. So, we're in the video somewhat of that play. But, I really, that's one of my major takeaways, is that I enjoyed that baseball game, getting to see it in person. You guys know me. Yeah. I'm not the biggest baseball guy. I've talked about it before on the show, but, man, watching it in person, it was a lot of fun. They're really entertaining, and I definitely would like to go back up there and watch some more WVU baseball games, especially with the team playing as good as they are. It's going to be a fun team to watch, and fingers crossed they get a chance to host a regional there. If they do, I'm going to definitely try and get back up there, and Steven and I are going to try and make another trip up and watch them again, because, man, they hit. That team can hit some balls, man. They hit a couple dingers, 14 runs before we left, or I think 11 runs before we left, ended up with 14 for the game, and 27-4 now, so having a special season there in Steve Saban's first year with the baseball team. That was a big takeaway from a really fun Saturday, is that baseball team's fun to watch for sure, man.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I can't get enough of them. I was really sad that they canceled today's game. They canceled today's game with Penn State. Said they won't make it up either. So cited cold weather. But yeah, absolutely, man. I can't wait to get up there and watch them again. I really truly hope that they can host a super regional, because I want to go up there and be in that atmosphere. That's going to be a super fun. I would have liked to have been there last week whenever they hosted Pitt. They packed that place out. Yeah, they had people over on like the grassy area and everything else. So, I mean, I think that would be cool to do again.
Yeah, we got to go up there for one of those ones where it's going to be packed out like that for sure.
They got a chance, man. They got great hitting, like you said. They got, but also they got great pitching, and they have some pretty good defensive players too. Like in the outfield, those guys are fast. They make plays, as you've seen. But I've also seen some really good plays in the infield this season too. So I don't know, man. They can just keep playing like they're playing and put it all together. They got it.
Yeah, so all in all, super successful Saturday for us, minus getting hit with some rain at the tail end. But, I mean, got to go up, check out the spring showcase, Rich Rod 2.0 era. More on that momentarily. We'll talk a bit more about what we saw on the football field, but meet some legends, as Steven said, getting the picture with Pac-Man Jones, me getting the Jaheim autographs, and then watch West Virginia's baseball team as they're on a roll. It was a win-win day, and, we really enjoyed it, so wanted to touch on that a little bit. But we'll dive into the football stuff now, kind of our takeaways from what we saw on the field. I jotted down a couple of notes and just kind of want to talk. Me and Steven got maybe a little bit of a quarterback debate as well we'll get into. But, obviously one thing that goes into those trips for us to Morgantown is, we're coming from Mercer County, so it's a good bit of a drive there and a good bit of a drive back. Sometimes get you a little bit tired. Sometimes you need, a little bit extra caffeine. But I'll tell you what really, set it off for me on this trip, Steven, was our good friends over at Magic Mind, man. We was on the way up there, it was early. I told Steven, I said, hey, I brought a couple of our Magic Minds. Both hit one of those, and man, we were wide awake and wired for the rest of the day, ready to take on anything. And Magic Mind can do that for you, can do it for anybody. It's an excellent product. You don't have to replace your caffeine. We could still have our coffee alongside that Magic Mind. It only added to those benefits. Plus, the Magic Mind's all natural, tested by doctors, has the highest grade matcha possible inside of it. The mental performance shot will help you whether you're taking long trips like we were up to the game, whether you have school work to do, whether you have work to do for your 9 to 5. Anything you got there, it's going to help with any daily routine, keep you focused, mentally clear, motivated, and productive, all while reducing stress and having some really good benefits involved there with that, especially if you continue to use it daily like I choose to do. That's when you really start to reap those benefits. So I would recommend the subscription. You can buy singles in certain supermarkets there. Sprouts, Central Markets have those as well. But definitely if you want to get in on it, I would suggest ordering it online, because with that, we can help you out here with our code from the CRW. Just head over to magicmind.com/CRW20. Use the code CRW20 at checkout. You can get 48% off that first subscription or 20% off a one-time purchase. It's also fully guaranteed. They 100% back the product. If you don't like it, you'll get a 100% refund. But you're not only helping yourself, you're helping others. Each bottle purchased, they donate to mental health charities as well. So it's just an all-around win-win situation, much like mine and Steven's Saturday was in Morgantown. So definitely do us a favor, do yourself a favor. Try out the Magic Mind Mental Performance Shot. That's magicmind.com/CRW20 and use the code CRW20 at checkout to get 48% off the subscription or 20% off the one-time purchase. We highly recommend it. It especially helps with those trips to Morgantown, like the one that we made this past weekend and had a great time doing so. And when we went there, Stephen, of course, one of the main priorities was to get a look at the Mountaineers on the field. They held out a bunch of starters, especially on the defensive side, held out our guy Jaheim, which we kind of expected, but we did get a good look at some guys that are going to be in the mix for starting jobs, especially on the offensive side. So, I think we both had some takeaways. We both had a quarterback performance that we enjoyed. How were you feeling about what we saw on the football field specifically up there in the spring showcase?
I like a lot of what I've seen. I think that the receivers could definitely use some work. I noticed a couple tight ends that this was in Warmos more so because the tight ends didn't really get a lot of passes in the actual scrimmage plays that we seen. But a lot of them were missing some easy catches. A lot of the receivers in the scrimmage were missing some easy catches, in my opinion. But the running game looked really solid. I think defensive line looked for the most part pretty solid, especially like I said on those pass rushes. Seemed to be getting to the quarterback pretty fast. Although I think your choice at quarterback made some of them look a little silly there sometimes.
A couple times.
But that's just his talent. But yeah, I liked what I seen. I'm not going to mention the quarterback controversy on our differences yet until
yeah, we got to keep teasing that here for a little bit. But no, I agree, man. And I think what you said earlier is really one of the main things you got to keep in mind is it's tough to judge these spring showcases, whatever you want to call them sometimes, just because a lot of guys aren't playing. Some guys that may help you in the fall may not be on campus yet. We know this roster is subject to change a ton. I'll talk more about that here in a second as we
already
talk about
has
those.
Today.
Yeah, today it's already started. As we knew, we were expecting at least 20 plus guys off the roster. It's going to be probably closer to 30 or 40 by the time we're all said and done. But we'll talk more about that momentarily. As far as what I saw on the field, I definitely agree with what you said. The receiver depth that they've talked about needing to add more guys there, I think that's pretty evident. There's definitely some top line guys there that were making plays, and then you can tell there was a considerable drop off when they were playing some of the younger guys, some of the third teamers and such like that. I think on defense it was really hard to judge because of multiple reasons. One being Zach Alley's going to employ a ton of blitzes, and they obviously kept that vanilla. But you did see, I think Braden Siders is going to be such a really good pass rushing threat coming from that bandit position. He is one of the few guys that I think is going to contribute in the fall that did play a lot on defense in the game and made several plays despite it being more vanilla. And as you said, with the offense, the run game looked good. From what I could tell, I only seen about 4 or 5 different plays they were running, but they were still able to execute despite that fact. Most of the running backs looked good. All the quarterbacks that we saw can run a little bit. Nico and Jalen had the black shirts on. They were being touched, but Max Brown, they were able to hit a little bit. He was going live. Scotty Fox was going live as well. They had some good runs because of that. But I think one thing that I want to talk about here is, the defense sat out a ton of people, but the offense, I think we kind of got a glimpse into what the first team right now is kind of looking like, especially if you paid attention there during warm-ups. And, they did a 7-on-7 period where they showcased kind of all your skill positions. And then, of course, they had kind of the first team offensive line out there. So this is what kind of it looks like. Like I said, subject to change. This is just coming out of the spring. But your first team offensive line from left tackle over, left tackle was Nick Cray. Left guard was Walter Youngbear. Center was Landon Livingston. Right guard was Kimo Makaneole. And right tackle was Tykeist Crawford. So, 3 of those 5 starters, transfers that just came in. Nick Cray's a returning guy. And then Landon Livingston's a returning guy as well. So that's kind of what you had on the offensive line. Looks like those are the guys that are kind of ahead right now. Then at your other positions, quarterback, I think, Nico seems like he's kind of maybe the first team guy right now, but that's still an ongoing battle. More on that momentarily. Of course, Jaheim was the first team running back as they went through warm-ups. We knew he wasn't going to play, though. The outside receivers were Cam Vaughn and Jaden Bray. Inside, you had Rodney Gallagher in the slot, and the tight end that was up first there with them was Jacob Barrick. So, take with that a grain of salt, but that's kind of who it looks like there was lined up as the first teamers. But one of those is up for debate, I think, Stephen. So let's talk about it. Let's get into it here. The quarterback position, that's going to be the juicy story throughout, most of this offseason. One guy really stuck out to you. One guy really stuck out to me. I will say, I think, just judging by the way that they split up the snaps and stuff, I think that the guy that you kind of thought had the best performance is probably the guy that's a little bit ahead right now. I think mainly because the way he did things in the passing game versus the guy that I'm kind of been pulling for and I'm a fan of. He did make one mistake in the passing game, but he looked really good as a runner. But some of those run plays were hard to tell with both those two wearing black jerseys. So why don't you talk about, the guy that stood out to you, and he's probably the guy that's a little bit ahead right now. So who is that, Stephen?
My guy, Nico Marchio. I've said it from day one. I'm still riding that train. I want Nico to be the starter, and that's nothing against Jalen, but I mean he's an elite runner. He is absolutely a better runner than Jalen Henderson, than Nico is. I mean that's undeniable. But I don't know. I feel like Nico is while he's not like a flashy runner or like a I don't know, a fast runner. He doesn't have a lot of side-to-side speed, but he's like a big body runner. He can still run.
Oh, yeah, he still can run.
It's just a different style.
We saw that for sure, yeah. Yeah, I think that, if I'm being honest with myself, I think Nico is, like I said, he's clearly, I think, a little bit ahead right now. I think when you see, I think it was the second play of the spring showcase. It was a deep pass play to Cam Vaughn. The timing looked like it was there. He also had the best throw of the game where he put a ball, outside where only a receiver could catch it. And, had to zoom past a cornerback, and it was a perfect throw to Jarrell Williams on the sidelines. Those were the two best throws I saw of the day. Both came from Nico. Jalen Henderson had a nice, which would have been a touchdown run if they weren't marking him down two-hand touch, where you saw some of the wheels there.
They did that a few times, I think, was on purpose to try to get him to will it.
Yeah, to go again.
Or to get an extra play or something like that. Get a goal line play.
Because some of those would have been bigger plays if they weren't being touchdown. And I think that's what also kind of hampered Jalen a little bit, is that's a side of his game that, we don't really get to see when they're not being hit. But the fact that those two quarterbacks were the only two wearing the black jerseys, I think shows that they're the two that are really battling for that starting spot right now, for sure. I love Nico as well. The reason I've been kind of just riding the Jalen train is I think that he brings a little bit more explosiveness to the run game, which I think will be
Absolutely, he
beneficial in a
does,
Rich
no
Rod
doubt.
offense. Not to say that Nico can't run, as we've talked about there, and Steven mentioned Nico can run also, but I think the difference is Nico can get you 20 or 30. Jalen could break you, a 40, 50-yarder and take it to the house, which I love, and that's just me probably being biased to growing up watching the Rich Rod offense the first time I was here and having a quarterback that was explosive like that, so I'm wanting to see that again. But, at the end of the day, whoever's the best man for the job is going to win, and I think either one is more than capable of, winning football games and being a good signal caller. So I think it's a good problem to have, is having a quarterback battle that's going to continue between Nico and Jalen. And, of course, Max Brown may have something to say. He made some good plays. Scotty
Oh, yeah.
Fox looks like he has a bright future. So I like the quarterback room, and I can see why it's been one that's been praised. But we
I
just
will
had
say,
our friendly debate there between Nico and Jalen we had to touch on a little bit.
though that my opinion could change towards the start of the season, because while Nico's an elite thrower, and I mean, he's proven that, if we still don't have receivers that can catch the ball by the time that the season rolls around,
Good point.
we might be better off with Jalen, because like you said, he puts a whole different, a lot of more of explosive dynamic to our run game with him on there on the field. So I don't
Agreed.
know. It could change.
That's a good
Depends.
point. We'll see how it plays out. I'm sure. I don't think we're going to know until right up till the first game, maybe sometime during the week of game week before we have that first game against Bobby Moe, because Rich Rod's going to play it pretty close to the vest on that. That's one thing that's for sure. So, but that's pretty much what we had as far as spring showcase takeaways and just talking about our day a little bit on Saturday. Now we got to kind of look towards the future here, and we'll talk some basketball here before we wrap up the show. But just to kind of finish up with football, we talked about it briefly. We won't run through all the names here because it's an ever-growing list, and it's going to continue to be. And by the time you watch this podcast episode, it may have already changed. So we won't mention any of the names specifically that were just cut today. I mean, there is one that definitely we want to talk about, and that's, Dom Collins, a friend of the show that, is going to be transferring out from the WVU program, which saddens us. His brother was a friend of the program as well. You've heard us praise him a lot. We think he's a guy that's super talented. But the one thing I want to hit when talking about, this roster overhaul that we knew was coming, and I think, seeing a guy like a Dom Collins and a lot of these other names, it's over 20 names that are going to be transferring out that were released just today, and that list is going to continue to grow as West Virginia has to get under these new roster limits from the NCAA. I think now we're seeing it just kind of play out what Rich Rod was talking about, hating about these new rules from the NCAA with these roster limits, because it really does hurt as far as, those guys that in the past you would see them as redshirt freshmen and be like, man, that guy has a ton of potential. Can't wait till he has a chance to contribute in this program, or freshmen or sophomores. A lot of those guys, instead of getting the chance to keep them around, develop them through your program, you're going to have them transfer out so you can bring in guys that are kind of one-year mercenaries. It's going to just completely change the way that everything functions. No longer are you going to get to see guys develop throughout your program that you're really excited about. Instead, those guys are going to be essentially, thrown by the wayside for you to go out and get guys that can come in and help you right away that year. Look no further than a lot of the names that were on that list today that have already been asked to transfer out, or maybe, some have decided to transfer out on their own. We're never going to know, which was which, whether they were encouraged to transfer or whether they're kind of making the decision on their own. All that we know is that they're going to transfer out. But I think you look at a lot of those names, there was multiple guys that were early enrollees, literally just got here, were going to be true freshmen this upcoming season. There's guys that were redshirt freshmen that look like they have super bright futures at skill positions, at multiple positions, and then guys that have been here a couple of years that look like it was going to be kind of their time to contribute, maybe as sophomores, maybe as juniors. But instead of waiting to see if they are going to develop, now you have to take a chance and say, hey, we can go get a guy that's played college football for 3 years, and we know kind of what we're getting in him. And so you got to kind of go with the more sure thing, unfortunately, and replace a lot of these guys via the portal with, 1-year mercenaries. So I think really, I hate to see a guy from an area that we're from be one of those guys that falls victim to that, because I think he's a guy that's got a super bright future wherever he lands. He's going to have a great career, and you can say that for a lot of the names that were on that list of 20 plus guys today, which I will be doing live streams on the YouTube channel to keep you guys up to date with that, probably daily. I'll do one on Tuesday morning where we'll go over that full list, and I'll keep you guys up to date with how the roster looks. We just don't want to date the episode necessarily and read off the full list to you guys. We more so want to talk about kind of our feelings of how this affects the roster moving forward and how this affects Mountaineer football and college football in general, because I think that this speaks to another bad decision by the NCAA with these roster limits the way that they're doing them, where it essentially hurts programs like WVU who have traditionally been able to take guys, guys that were preferred walk-ons, guys that didn't have many offers but WVU, and then 2, 3, 4 years down the road, those guys are big factors in your program. Instead of being able to develop them and see them come to fruition, now unfortunately a lot of the hope for that is going to be these guys going to other programs, smaller schools, mid-majors, group of 5 schools, and then, playing, having a good career there, and eventually transferring up to WVU is going to be something West Virginia has to rely on instead of being able to develop them in their program, which really sucks, Stephen. That's the way that it's really kind of hit me throughout the day more than I've thought about it, is we're giving up, program guys for essentially 1 and 2 year mercenaries a lot of the time, I think. But I digress, and just kind of your thoughts on the state of things with this 105 player roster limit and how it's going to affect West Virginia's roster and affect West Virginia football moving forward.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's just another horrible decision by the NCAA to do this, because, like you said, I mean, West Virginia's always prided itself on being able to take guys from walk on or people that weren't really looked at by any other school. I mean, Rich Rodriguez even said himself that he was a walk on here. So, I mean, like,
Yeah.
he might have not ever even got a chance to play if that was the case back then. And I don't know. The more I'm like you, the more I've thought about it all day. I was complaining to my girlfriend earlier, and she's like rolling her. She's like, I don't really get what you're talking about. But I was so sad and so upset that, man,
Got
obviously
to
we're
vent.
upset for real. I mean, like, obviously, like, the one that really hurts the most personal to us is Dom Collins, because we really wanted to see what he could do in this offense and thought that he really had a lot of potential. I know he's got a lot of potential. I still
Oh,
think
for
that
sure.
wherever he ends up, he's absolutely gonna turn heads. But I really do think that this rule absolutely affects WVU in a negative way. I mean, and we've got NIL dollars. That's true, and we can pay players to be like what you say is 1 year mercenaries. But I don't know. I'm still in favor. I've said it for as long as, at least as long as we've had this show, and a lot longer. I mean, we've known each other a long time, and I've said for a long time that the NCAA needs to be abolished.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, we need um, a true governing body that actually has rules that they abide by that are clear to understand, for one. And I mean, it goes all the way to eligibility rules and things of that nature. There's just so many things that you could point to that are questionable about the NCAA, and
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just so many things that have changed about the game. There's positives, there's a lot of negatives, but there's no structure, in my opinion. I think
Yep.
people call it the Wild West because that's exactly what it is. I mean, there's just so much chaos in collegiate sports nowadays, and it's really unfortunate for student athletes who are in this position, and it's unfortunate for the coaches too and the institutions, because it makes them look bad. Like you, and we've had people reach out, and I've had multiple people text me today, and they F West Virginia, because, like, they're not going to give him a chance, and I'm like, I mean, I know it's easy to say that, but I mean, like, it's truly, I mean, as much as it's cliche to say, it's really not in West Virginia's hands, because the NCAA's tying their hands behind their back and making them
Yep.
make these roster cuts, and it puts them in, between a rock and a hard place. And it's truly heartbreaking.
Yep.
I'm upset, and I just truly hope that things can change at some point soon, but it doesn't look like that's the case. I mean, because what could you do? I mean, how many lawsuits has there already been against the NCAA to make them, quote unquote, act right? And then I mean, for example, like this whole NIL thing. I mean, like they fought and fought and fought against. You talk about digress. I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but
No, I mean,
there's a
it's all
point. I
relevant.
mean, like they fought and fought and fought against people who were receiving dollars behind closed doors whenever they were attending college. I mean, like the most famous, I guess, case is Reggie Bush, and when they found out that he was receiving money and getting cars and treated like a celebrity in Hollywood. And I don't mean to portray that as a negative thing. I think it's awesome he could do that while playing USC because he was. I mean, he is undoubtedly the best running back to ever play the game of college
He's a
football,
legend.
still today. That's what I believe. But they stripped his name away from USC. They took away all of his accolades. They took away his Heisman Trophy, for God's sake, and then took an act of Congress, took Johnny Manziel pretty much, sitting off of the panel until Reggie got his Heisman back, and now they celebrate him, and then now they act like they're in favor of players getting paid and they're happy to do it. And I'm like, I mean, like it's laughable. It's laughable
Yeah,
the things that we have to witness,
it's
and
too little, too late.
something's got to give at some point. I mean, like collegiate sports as a whole. I mean, college football obviously is you know, a big revenue gaining sport. But basketball and baseball now it's growing because people are large, more people are able to watch them play. Um, so like it's too large of an institution that gets money, or not an institution, but you know what I'm saying, entity that gets money to fail. So we have to find a way to get some structure and have an actual governing body that knows what they're doing.
Yep. Got to get some regulation somehow because, um, like Rich Rod said, I think he said earlier this spring, college sports is, a hard thing to screw up, but they're doing a good job of trying right now. And I think that
Absolutely.
this
Yeah.
this roster limit rule falls right in that because it's like they made it, then they didn't even really know how they were going to implement it, and now they're trying to put out statements talking about how to implement it when it's already ongoing and already happening. And yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess, but typical as most things are involving the NCAA. So it's kind of where we are on that. And like, if you want to stay up to date on West Virginia's roster, like I said, the best thing to do is come over to the Country Roads Webcast YouTube channel. Keep it subscribed here. We'll continue to update you as transfers move out, as transfers start to move in. It's going to be plenty of them moving out, as we talked about in the past. There already has been. There's going to be a good bit more, and we'll continue to cover that. And although we're lamenting some of the losses, I think, blame the NCAA is, kind of the main thing right there that you have to point to, as Steven
Which
said
how many
there,
times do we have
for
to
sure.
say that a
Yeah,
year now? I mean,
too
like,
many.
good Lord, it's like every 2 weeks. I mean, like last year you get the whole. I mean, like, and I'm just citing recent ones at this point, but like last year you get the whole Raekwon Battle situation, and you got to take them to court, and then he gets eligibility through that. And then this year, just flashing forward, or yeah, this year flashing forward, we get snubbed for the NCAA tournament, and don't even have to go into that because everybody knows what happened.
Yep, it's always something with them, for
I
sure.
mean, it's now. I mean, now these roster cuts. I mean, it affects everyone. It's not just WVU, but West
Yeah, but
Virginia's always
that's what
getting
I was gonna say. That's
the
what affects
shaft
us
in.
though. Is whatever affects WVU for sure. So
That's right. That's
that's
right.
what we're hitting about most. But how about some positive transfer news then? Let's switch gears. Let's talk a little bit of basketball here before we wrap up episode 220 here. We'll talk some transfer portal news on the basketball side because we did get some good news there in that aspect. And I think we got multiple facets of good news coming on the way for the basketball side. But the most recent is the commitment of Harlan Obioha coming over from UNC Wilmington to WVU. The Mountaineers get a 7-foot, 280-pound big man, which is awesome, especially when their roster last year lacked so many bigs.
Yeah.
Also know the destination of the transfers out. We knew DeVries to Indiana. We knew Powell to UNC. We knew Tenor to Murray State. Since our last episode, Hansberry has committed to VT, and Sincere Harris has committed to Cincinnati. West Virginia does have plenty of other targets that they're after. We'll highlight some of those momentarily, but let's talk a little bit about Obioha first, Steven. I'm going to pull up some good numbers on him from a couple of good tweets, one of which from Brad Howe of WV Metro News there. Some good numbers on incoming hoops transfer Harlan Obioha, a lead offensive rebounder, the 16th best offensive rebounding rate in the country, an elite shot blocker, top 3 percentage nationally according to KenPom, 15 games with double-figure points, 4 games with double-figure rebounds, and top 3% nationally in fouls drawn per 40 minutes with 82% rate there. And then how about something nice from the UNC Wilmington side of things as well as their sidelines account there. Sidelines UNCW says West Virginia is getting a really good big man. Obioha isn't your typical 7-footer. He has a high IQ and above average passing ability, extremely high motor who always brings the energy. Good luck and thanks for the memories. All of those things sound great. The rebounding and the rim protection, obviously you need in Ross Hodge's defensive system, but the fact that he can move despite that size will help in the pick and roll side of things in the Ross Hodge 4-out 1-in offense, and he'll be the one that's in there scoring from the post and helping out in those pick and roll situations. But Stephen, any early thoughts on Harlan Obioha being the first transfer addition for what will be a nice transfer portal class for Coach Ross Hodge? We got a big man.
Yeah, man, and it's a really good feeling to have somebody that is an actual big man. There for a while we was getting guys that were like 6'9", 6'10", and they were going up against guys that were 7'1", 7'2". In the Big 12 conference sometimes, and then I mean they were good. I'm not saying that they weren't, but I mean traditionally I think our best teams have had a pretty big guy that could move, that could get offensive rebounds. But this guy sounds like if he could do it down there, hopefully he can do it at West Virginia.
Yeah, that's the thing now. So he's stepping up to the power conference level. We'll have to see how he progresses. But if he progresses the way that he has throughout his career, because I believe he was at Niagara before UNC Wilmington and he's increased his numbers every year, so hopefully he can stay on that same path. And like you said, good to have the size. Last year, Ed Andre was a decent-sized big, but all our other bigs were, 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" at most. So we got a 7-footer this year. We're
hopefully
off to a
Ed
better
Andre
start
stays
already.
too. Now, I mean,
I think he's out of eligibility.
Is he really? He was at the spring
his
game.
Final year. Yeah, he's out of eligibility. I think the only people left on the roster, scholarship-wise, are Offrey Neve, Oyadir, who is a big that redshirted, and then Harris Elizavich is back as well. So I think that's all.
Man.
Sticking it out. Man. Sticking it out.
Sticking it out,
multiple
dog.
changes.
What you imagine what a story that'll be if he actually gets a
chance to start to show out.
Yeah, gets a chance and actually comes out there and balls out, and then
it could happen. We could see him throwing some oops to Obioha next season now.
Yeah,
you never know.
Talk about going through a whirlwind, and it's like you stay loyal, and then everybody else around you leaves. You know what I mean?
He's like the Will Smith and Will Smith Fresh Prince meme now. He's just standing there looking around the room and nobody's in there,
Keep with us, Oprah, man. I'm hoping to see him play, man.
Hope some good things for him. He deserves it for sure.
Yeah.
But speaking of big men, I think we may have another big man that is going to join in the near future, Stephen, and that's one that we had talked about when he entered the transfer portal. He was going through the NBA draft process, but seems like he has a better chance of returning to college, and if so, he has the do not contact beside his name in the transfer portal because it seems like he may know his destination, and that's the North Texas player we were hoping to land, and Brennan Lorient On3 has predicted him to transfer to West Virginia. As you see here, they put out on social media. Of course, he averaged 12 points and 5 rebounds per game this past season. 6th man of the year there in the American Athletic Conference and was an all-conference style player. So would be a big get to get 6'9" Brennan Lorient as well. That's the next one that I'm keeping an eye on. I think he could be the next transfer commit for WVU. But how about some other names that the Mountaineers are targeting in hoops here? This is the transfer contact list for those of you guys watching the video version. You can see the names in red have committed to other programs already. Of course, the name in blue is Harlan Obioha, who has committed to the Mountaineers. But we'll run through this for you guys that listen on the audio side. Appreciate you guys that do tune in on the audio side, which you can find on any podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. If you listen there, leave us a rating. That helps us out a ton and share us around. You guys that watching the video version, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, give the video a like, help us with the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on the roster as it continues to develop in both sports. And shout out to our friends at WVSportsNow.com for hosting our episodes on their website as well. But the contacted transfers for West Virginia, some targets to keep an eye on. Terrence Ginyard at UT Martin remains uncommitted. Still one West Virginia's in the running for. Forward Garrett Norman from Michigan State, still uncommitted. Isaiah Barnes, a guard from Tulsa, still uncommitted. Keontae Jones, a forward from Cal State Northridge, has committed to USC. Donovan Brown, a guard from Florida Tech, committed to UMass. Duke Brennan, a forward from Grand Canyon. West Virginia still in the running for. Guard Honor Huff from Chattanooga, definitely one to keep an eye on, one of the best three-point shooters in the country. Still uncommitted at this time. Jakari White from North Dakota State, committed to Virginia. Jamichael Stillwell, really great rebounder, one of the best in the country from Milwaukee. West Virginia still in the running for his services. They're also still in the running for guard Don McHenry from Western Kentucky and guard Themis Fulks, also from Milwaukee. A couple of other guards off the board. Brian Moore Jr. from Norfolk State, committed to Grand Canyon. Jason Edwards, who we were keeping an eye on because he did play for North Texas in 2023, played for Vanderbilt this past season, but he's actually committed to Providence already. The other guard that West Virginia had contacted that committed elsewhere is Terrence Brown from FDU. West Virginia will see him again as he commits to Utah. And then four more targets that remain uncommitted. Guard Tayton Connerway from Troy, forward Brennan Lorient from North Texas, but fingers crossed, I think he'll be a Mountaineer in the near future. I've got a good feeling about that one. And then we also have Devin Hayes from Central Connecticut and Makai Mason from Washington that remain uncommitted. So West Virginia still has, I think, 8 to 10 guys that remain uncommitted that they've contacted in the portal, and this list will continue to grow. But any names there that stand out to you that you'd like to see West Virginia pick up there from the contact list, Stephen?
The guy from Michigan State, I'd like to get him.
Oh, yeah.
I watched
High
Michigan
potential
State a
on
few.
him.
Yeah, very high potential. Michigan State, I mean, always a good basketball team, but I watched them play a few times this year, especially in the tournament, and they look good. He looked good.
Yeah. It'd be a good one to get. Garrick Norman coming out of the Big Ten there in Michigan State was a really high-rated recruit coming out of high school. Yet to really recognize that potential, but someone with a super high ceiling. I think that him, Duke Brennan, or Jamichael Stillwell would be good adds for their rebounding ability. Brennan Lorient, I think we will get. So I think we'll have a couple big men in the fold. I think we'll have Obioha and we'll have Lorient. So I would love for West Virginia to add one of these guards, of course, in the mix for several of them. All of them would be good pickups, but the number one guy on my target list is Honor Huff. Keeping an eye on him. I think Phil Forte is helping recruit him. Has everyone in the nation after him, essentially, as he was one of the best three-point shooters in the country, but that would be an awesome add for West Virginia. I'm looking for a guard here in the near future as we're going after a couple big men, but we'll keep you up to date there on this transfer list as it grows. Transfers out have pretty much been covered as they've announced their destinations. Now we're keeping a focus on the transfers in list. As we've added Harlan Obioha, 7-foot, 280-pounder, there is the first one, and hoping that Brennan Lorient's name can be added to that list in the near future. But that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about basketball-wise. I think we've hit on everything we wanted to talk about football-wise and our fun Saturday in Morgantown that we had. Stephen, anything you want to touch on here towards the tail end before we wrap up episode 220?
No, I just want to give a PSA to D1Baseball.com and rank us. Rank us.
Please. Long over.
They just ranked the Virginia Tech Hokies with a 20, I forget what, 26, something like that. 26-10, 25-10. 10 losses. West Virginia's 27-4 and ain't in the top 25.
That's an absolute joke, an absolute travesty.
They have the same record for reference. They have the same record as the top, like 6 of the top 7 teams in the rankings, and yet they're not in the rankings.
Unbelievable! Yet another something to hate on the NCAA about.
I think this one is D1Baseball.com. I don't know if that's an NCAA ranking system or not. They have like a bunch of different ones, but the only one ESPN recognizes is D1Baseball.com. But there's there's Ken Palm and there's USA Today and there's a few other ones, but that we are ranked like 11th, and like a bunch of all the other ones were ranked in. But
I smell collusion. D1Baseball.com colluding against us. Yeah, rank the Mountaineer baseball team, which shout out to them. Glad we got to watch them on Saturday. They're having a phenomenal season. Hopefully that continues, and they have a really nice postseason as well. We'll keep an eye on that and try and talk about it occasionally throughout the podcast episodes here as we'll continue to talk about the developing roster for basketball and football. And we'll be back with you guys here in the near future to talk more about those things as we head into fun new eras in the Mountaineer football under Rich Rod and Mountaineer basketball under Ross Hodge, in which they're both going to build really successful and talented rosters as well, and we can't wait to discuss those. Appreciate you guys for tuning into this episode as we recapped a fun Saturday in Morgantown and hit on both football, basketball, and even a little bit of baseball in there as an appetizer as well, and we'll continue to talk about those things as these baseball's ongoing, and the development of these rosters and the other sports is ongoing as well. Been a fun episode. Like I said, if you watch on the YouTube side, hit the like button before you head out. If you listen on the audio side, be sure to rate the show and share it around with your friends. And shout out to our friends over at wvsportsnow.com for hosting on their website as well. And guys, be sure to check out Magic Mind. Your mind will thank you for that. Great mental performance shot, and head over to magicmind.com/CRW20. Use the code CRW20 to get your discount at checkout. But that'll do it for us here for this one. For my co-host Steven, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountain.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those